Seems like okay.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Drive By Dirt Bike. This is my YouTube channel. Usually it's kind of about an old guy getting back into the sports and the trials and tribulations I'm going through after a long time away. But lately we've been kind of, the channel's evolved a little bit and we're getting into a little bit more of a moto media sort of aspect. In this particular episode, I decided to make one about sponsorship from a company standpoint. Give you a brief background on myself. As a youth, I had a fair bit of dealings with sponsorship, both for myself in moto and then in other sports as well. And later on, I managed a team of riders. And then even later on, from a corporate standpoint, handled marketing and advertising, which did tend to encompass some sponsorship. So I have a pretty good handle on this, and I get asked for my opinion and thoughts on things sponsorship related on a regular basis. So I thought I'd make this episode from a businessman's perspective of sponsorship. So starting at the beginning, from a company standpoint, sponsorship comes down to two things. One would be to build the image and reputation and brand, which eventually would lead to sales of a product or service, or literally the sales side of selling your product or service. So that's the end goal from a company's perspective. Why you would sponsor anybody is to, and the end goal obviously is to increase the sales of your product or your services. Whether that be through building the reputation and brand to where people want to purchase that product on their own, or whether somebody is literally physically sort of influencing the sale of that product. What companies generally look for, again, in the moto side of it, obviously, I feel like unless you're a top tier pro or maybe a top intermediate, maybe a top 85 rider, that's really the only people that are going to generally build the reputation and the prestige of a brand. So if you're outside of that small window, it really comes down to attitude and an image, and what you do off the bike is probably more important than what you're doing on the bike, unfortunately. So that's the one side of it. It is a merit-based thing where results will benefit you, but at the same time it's not solely results. Somebody who's really good in the parking lot and influences people in that regard can generally generate as much sponsorship as somebody at a top tier level. One of the things I find that people do, the general perception with motocross is that it's a really hard sport to market and to bring in good sponsorship. And I disagree with that, but I find what a lot of people base that on is that they're targeting moto-related companies. The low-hanging fruit, the stuff that that relates directly to motocross. But generally speaking, again, if you look at that from those companies' perspectives, if you're a mid-tier junior rider, are you really going to benefit that company's sales? Chances are not a lot. So on that side of it, that really is only beneficial, I do feel, to a top-tier guy. What I do think is a missed opportunity for people, and I get asked a lot who people should target. I look at the goods and services that you yourself, or if you're a youth, your parents, that you use on a monthly basis. So easiest thing to do, I find, is to make a list of where your money goes each month. Okay, if you have a landlord, that's a company that receives money from you. If you have vehicle insurance, life insurance, automobile insurance, those are products that you buy every month where you've dealt with a salesman, and that salesman should understand, at the very least, your proposal. And again, at the very least, he's likely to put you in touch with whoever handles the advertising or marketing side of their business. Again, back to products that you use, whether it's your fuel for home heating or fuel for a vehicle, where you bought your vehicle, just your day-to-day purchases. Look at who you buy those from, and those are generally, in my opinion, the people to target. And this is where, the old saying, Walmart doesn't sponsor your kid's hockey team, comes back to. It really benefits you if you know the names and faces of the people that you do business with. If you're a guy who bought from large corporations in mail order, well, this is when it comes back to bite you in the ass. So yeah, that's generally who I say to go after with regards to companies to target. The people you do business with on a day-to-day basis. At the very least, they'll put you in touch with somebody who runs their advertising or marketing departments. Again, or one of the other things I'd like to say is think of it as a business. A lot of people ask for donations towards their racing. That comes across a little bit like you're looking for pity, or please sir, can I have some more, is the saying that I always use. When you're looking for donations, you're going to get pocket change. I generally think of it as, try to treat it as a business and present to somebody an advertising marketing opportunity that you're presenting to them. Another thing I find that where people harm themselves is they'll put a predetermined dollar figure on what they're looking for, or a little presentation that has $250 limit, $500 limit. I generally disagree with doing that, and I'll tell you why. Because in the past, I've had dollar figures in my mind, like say $1,000 is what I'm hoping to get from this company, and I beat around the bush and not come out and said $1,000. I've used things like, well, it's going to be a $15,000 investment for this season, and been pleasantly surprised when they've come back at maybe 5 times more than what I had in my mind, or 10 times more than what I had in my mind. So I feel you're really limiting yourself when you go in with a predetermined amount. Let the other person or come up with that amount in discussion organically, rather than going in with that predetermined. Got some other notes here. Aim high. There's no reason not to ask for a lot and then let somebody come back with a lower amount. But if you don't aim high, you're not gonna get high. Another thing is, don't necessarily limit yourself to local companies. There's no reason that you can't go after a national fuel company, a national company of somebody, some other nature. A lot of the downside to going after bigger corporations is sometimes they have their advertising and market budgets spent for more or spoken for more than one season in advance. So that can be the downside of it. You may have to plan a little bit further in, or you do the groundwork that may benefit you down the road. But again, no reason to just stick with local companies. Let's go here. Oh, back to one of the other things people talk about as a negative with regards to moto sponsorship is the limited amount of space available on your bike and or gear, and use that as a reasoning that it's difficult to come up with. True, there is limited amounts of space there, but I feel one of the things that we all do wrong is the advertise for free, let's say. How many guys are out there riding around with Monster logos or Red Bull logos or Rockstar logos? You're getting nothing from those companies. The benefit is incredibly, it's non-existent, and in fact, it's a deterrent. If I was one of those companies, why would I help you out when you're already doing the advertising for free in advance? I used to laugh as a kid when kids would get sticker packs. I would run a clean bike with no logos on it whatsoever. Unless somebody was kicking in something, they weren't getting on the bike. To this day, I'm not going to put something on. I am a little bit guilty. I've got Honda logos on my bike just for the, I purchased the bike from them. They don't deserve any free advertising. One of the biggest offenders that most of us do is a bar pad. Where you are limited in visible space, to take up that valuable, especially it's prime GoPro visual spot. It's visual from all aspects, and we're all riding around with Renthal or Pro Taper pads that, again, for the right to purchase some bars off you or came on the bike, we're doing that advertising for free. Hate to say it, but handguards, I hate running them, but that's one of the most visible spots there is, and people should probably, take advantage of that more often and run handguards, because it is a good spot for logos. So again, I guess what I'm getting at is, don't advertise for free. It's only going to harm you in the long run. It's not going to help you. That's for sure. Another, while we're on the negative topic, Some of the other things that I find that do really hurt people with regards to sponsorship is comes down to a couple negative aspects, but one is greed, and I'll give you some examples from my own history. As a youth, I had a pretty sweet deal where a dealer was providing us with a bike for the year at no cost, and hand it back at the end of the year. But bike for the year covered cost of races and even a little bit of promotional money when they did open house night and stuff like that. And pretty sweet deal. My father got greedy and thought, well, if this company's willing to do this much for us, then surely somebody else might be willing to do more. Or so he went and sort of shopped our proposal, what we already had, to other people, and it ended up the dealer that we had a deal with talked to the other dealer that we had sort of shared the information with, and at the end of it, the dealer we had the deal with pulled the plug on our deal and canceled everything. He was so offended that we had gone and looked for more when we were really receiving a fairly generous package, especially considering I hadn't done anything special. Maybe a couple dozen wins on club levels, and spread out across the country, even worse, that benefited that dealer very limited because my parents traveled a lot and I had a lot of events outside our region. So we had a good deal, and greed ended up costing that deal. The next year, my dad was back to buying bikes, so it bit him in the ass pretty hard. Another example would be later in life snowboarding. A lot of companies at that time in the 90s were getting their products all made at, there'd be 2 or 3 different brands being made at one factory. And a lot of those companies had deals with the factory where they were allocated X amount of promotional boards, and they would get reimbursed if you took back your beat up board. Well, a lot of cases, we were only being asked to send back the rode off board, and greed. I couldn't resist selling off those rode off boards for $150 each month rather than send it back. And at the end of the year or two, I had a manufacturer that said, no, I'm not giving you anything more. We only asked you to send back, your rode off boards, and you didn't do it. But the greed on my part to make $150 off each one of those decks, ended up costing me in that particular avenue. And same thing for a buddy of mine, exactly the same situation. So that's where I do find greed. Another thing a lot of people do is really dilute their own brand by whoring out, I'll see guys advertise their list of sponsors, and it's, hashtag this, hashtag that, and it's a grocery list long. It's 25 items. Companies that kick in, I don't know, free sprocket for the year. That's great. You got a 30% off something or a free sprocket, but you've diluted your brand to where now it is affecting even the people that kicked in more. Because if you've got a grocery list there of 25 items, reality is nobody's reading that, and now the people that did kick in a little more are being sort of diluted by the fact that you've got 25 different people listed as a sponsor. So know your worth, know your value, and don't dilute your own personal brand too much. It will come back to actually harm you in the end. Again, if you don't do a good job for those sponsors, I guarantee they will dry up. Unless they're pretty much worthless anyway. You're 30% off your sprockets type sponsor when you use 2 a year. I know that's of value to some people, but that's going to cost you something better. That being said, another negative aspect I see is, especially on the pro level, you'll see a guy win a championship and sit there and, pin the throttle until the motor blows. Personally, and again, this is just my opinion, I see that as a negative aspect. I mean, there are kids who dream of participating in a sport like this and think how heartbreaking it is for them to see somebody, not valuing, not appreciating what they have, just blowing up a motor or burning a tire off. And again, if you do that stuff on a local level, somebody like myself who might think about sponsoring a rider, if I see that sort of behavior, I got to stop and think. I probably wouldn't sponsor that guy because I want that bike back at the end of the year to recoup some of my costs. And if he's not treating it respectfully, that's sort of a negative. Some people wouldn't care about this behavior, but again, just my opinion, I feel that'll bite you in the ass if you're participating in anything like that. So that's kind of my thoughts on where to go with sponsors, and also, things that'll cost you sponsors. There's also some alternative methods you can explore, when you're approaching people, if they want to really see that you're going to benefit them sales-wise. There's the discount code thing is pretty common these days. Some sort of commission based on what they can tie back to your avenue of marketing. So there are other avenues to go there, but predominantly it's target the people you do business with, and that should pay off. Anyway, if anybody has any questions or wants any advice on this, feel free to PM me on social media, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about this. I enjoy kind of helping people with this. Finally, I know I've been ranting here, but I wouldn't be doing a very good job if I didn't take the time to thank my own sponsors. So the people that helped out this year with regards to the YouTube channel and a little bit of cost towards racing. Definitely want to start with Zinc's Mechanical Insulation. It's a company I believe strongly in, probably the nicest people in their field, the best quality work in their field, the best pricing in their field. So Zinc's Mechanical Insulation, I can't speak highly enough about them. DOC Engineering. You can Google them if you want to find out information on DOC Engineering. It's a local engineering firm. Whether it be design a heating system for your large-scale apartment, right down to a set of house plans. Very competent and professional engineering firm. I want to thank IC2 Testing and Balancing. Those guys are, again, a class leader when it comes to what they do, commissioning of integrated systems for commercial applications, testing and balancing of water and air systems. Terrific people. On top of those guys, we've got the Emco Corporation. They're a nationwide plumbing wholesaler. They helped out a little bit this year. I want to thank Ablaze Fine Art. He's a buddy of mine who, right from gallery level artwork to custom painted helmets, which is what he does for me. Terrific guy and beautiful artwork. Want to also thank AEC Digital, Atlantic Digital here in Halifax. They're predominantly known as a plant